then you know that we're going to chat about some advocacy training for tomorrow's upcoming legislative session. So thank you for being with us. I am Alex Shannon. I'm the Communications and Event Coordinator. We are also joined by our Director, Becca Hazelton, and our Policy Associate, Marissa Carpio. Hi.
Maybe I could just make a quick PSA and ask folks to go on mute if they're not talking. Thanks.
And just another quick ask, if you could pop your name, your county, and what song describes how you're feeling today in the comments, that would be awesome. I don't know. What are we thinking? Like a happy song or something really motivational? Eye of the Tiger, maybe, you know? Okay, so I think I already cut us off. The next slide is actually who we are. So again, Alex, Becca, and Marissa. And the Wyoming Women's Foundation is a priority fund of the Wyoming Community Foundation. Our mission is to invest in the economic self-sufficiency of women and opportunities for girls in Wyoming. We have been around for a while, and the Community Foundation has been around even longer. So the things that we try to do our hardest are fundraising for organizations.
It makes no difference.
We fundraise for organizations doing that work in our mission, investing in women and girls. We also create research that helps Wyoming make decisions and move forward in that mission. We make grants towards those organizations, and we have started doing some really awesome advocacy work. There's some more about that in the next slides.
Before we do that, can we read a few of the songs that have been popped into the
chat?
Definitely.
We actually heard one of them, I think, for a second there, and that was kind of fun. Maybe next time we can have folks actually just play them. But we got Somebody Feeling Happy, Mon Solio from Emily in Paris, season 3 on repeat. We have I Can See the Light from Nikki Kaufman, by Dolly Parton. And I saw another Dolly Parton working 9 to 5.
Perfect.
Or thereabouts. Anti-Hero by Taylor Swift from Rosa in Sweetwater County. Light of a Clear Blue Morning. And Live Your Life by the Dirty Heads. Celeste here in Albany County. We got Strange Overtones. And what else? Buffalo Springfield for What It's Worth from Fran and Sheridan. It's nice to see such great representation from around the state. We also have Melissa from Teton County. I Want to Be Sedated.
Love it, love it.
I think I said Sunshiny Day because it's a nice sunshiny day here in Laramie. So very cool. Okay, go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I just doing a quick intro. I think it's time for me to pass it off for the real content anyways.
Okay, love you guys.
All right. Love you too, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Just a quick, I guess we should have had this set up so folks were on mute when they entered, but yeah, just a quick reminder to mute yourselves. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I didn't put mine in the chat, but I think anything by Cardi B is constantly playing in my head. I won't lie. So probably, yeah, Cardi B song. But I'll go ahead and start with our key issues. If you made our last training, we actually said that we had 4 issues, and we've recently added another one. So our issues are education, that women and girls have access to K through 12 education, secondary education, and extracurriculars. Representation, that the gender of elected officials reflect that of the gender of Wyoming. Healthcare, that women and girls have access to healthcare, childcare and workplace policies. Women have access to affordable and quality childcare and workplace policies that allow them to work. And then last, the newest one, income and asset development, that women can attain a living income and that they can build assets over their lifetime. So I just want to do a quick survival tool check. As Alex said in the beginning, we sent out packets to our power advocates who have their addresses in our system. So they got a notebook, they got a pen, a legislative process map, mindfulness cards, a couple of other fun things. So I just want to make sure that everybody has something to write on. And then if you got one of those packets, that you have it with you, because that'll help you. And if you don't have it, don't worry, we can send some electronic versions of what we have, but it's always good to have those. And a quick shout out also to Alex for helping pack over almost 200, I think, of those and send them out on short notice. So that was great, and especially near the holidays. So today we'll be talking about how a bill becomes a law in Wyoming, what bills the Wyoming Women's Foundation are tracking, and then how do we remain collected and engaged, because it can be a very stressful and quick time in the session. If you've ever followed along closely, people are making decisions that impact our lives, and that can be scary and stressful. So we're going to do a quick mindfulness exercise at the end, so stay tuned. And then I just want to give you a few main takeaways. There's going to be a lot of information thrown at you throughout this presentation. So just knowing what happens in the steps of the legislative process, since we have kind of that map, you don't need to necessarily know which step comes right after another, but what happens in that step and where you can kind of step in as a citizen and use your voice. I think that would be more important in this training. If you would also pick a couple of bills that are most important to you, I certainly don't expect you all to remember every single bill we talk about, but if you just even notice one that you want to follow through this legislative session, that is very useful, not only to us, but to you and your lawmaker. And then last, have a plan to manage stress during the legislative session. As Alex said, I'm the policy associate for the Wyoming Women's Foundation, so I actually need to adhere to this one as well. And I'd be happy to hear any suggestions that you guys have throughout the presentation as well. Okay, so this is the card that we sent in our kits. We also have this map available on our website. It's a roadmap on how a bill becomes a law. And I'm going to explain it with a little bit more detail because we're in person, or I guess virtually, but live. So feel free to take notes on it or in your notebook. So a bill is drafted by LSO either for a committee. So a committee either votes on it and decides it's a committee sponsored bill, or by an individual member or lawmaker. And those individual lawmaker bills can come from chatting with other lawmakers, chatting with community members, to kind of to see what holes or solutions that they can come up with to put into law for the legislative session. So after that is drafted, the bill title is read aloud and assigned to a committee by a presiding officer. And so it starts in the Chamber of Origin is what it's often called. So if it's a House bill, it starts in the House. If it's a Senate file, it starts in the Senate. It's a little bit confusing because they don't even use the words first reading on the WYOLEG websites, just said introduced. So when you see introduced, you know that it's in that first reading. So after that, it gets referred to a committee, and this is a standing committee, and there are 12 parallel committees, which means there are, for one committee that's in the House, there's also a committee in the Senate. For example, if this example bill was about criminal law, it would likely be referred to judiciary, and since it's in the House, it would be referred to the House Judiciary Committee. The committee would hear the bill and vote whether to pass, do not pass, pass with amendments, or they can also just return it to the committee of the whole without recommendation. There's a lot of debate and discussion in the committee. These committees are generally made up of people who have expertise surrounding that bill. For example, if it's judiciary, there are PhD, those with PhDs in criminal law. There are lawyers in these committees, but they also rely on agencies, government officials, and the public to kind of give information and testimony about these bills. So this is where a lot of the constituent voice can come in, because we can testify either at the Capitol or virtually this year again, depending on the committee. So if anybody's ever interested in providing testimony, please reach out to me. There's also other great programs that we'll talk about at the end of this session on who to reach out to if you're interested in providing testimony. So then it awaits general file. What this essentially means is it's just a waiting list. It gets put on this list, and the majority floor leader gets to order this, and this is where the bills await debate at the committee of the whole, or often referred to as COW. So if I say COW, just know I mean that. It can be confusing. And this order can actually determine a lot about this bill, because there are going to be so many bills. I mean, we already have almost 200 that often bills fail because they run out of time. So the majority floor leader has a lot of power in this sense. And so after it gets on the general file, it moves to the committee of the whole, where the full chamber will discuss and debate the bill for the first time. So this is also a very important thing to watch, I would say. You can also message your lawmakers during this time if you want them to go up and speak. You can give them kind of some points on what you feel about the bill or what research that you've found. Then it goes to the second reading and the third reading, where the bill can still be amended, voted on, and debated before it's sent to the next chamber. The only difference with the third reading is that a majority of the elected, so not just the majority of the people who are present, but the majority of the elected, if that's the House, that's 62 people, so 36 people have to, is that good math? Probably not, but a majority of the people have to vote yes before it passes to the second chamber. So again, if this example bill started in the House, then we're moving to the Senate, and the same process repeats. First reading, standing committee, general file, committee of the whole, second reading, and third reading. And then so if it's passed by the chamber of the origin, the bill will move on to the governor. Hypothetically, unless there have been amendments that either chambers don't agree on yet, they might have to reconcile those differences. And I won't go deep into that because that gets very complicated. But essentially, once those differences are reconciled, it's sent to the governor, and he can either sign or veto the bill. But the bill can also become law without the governor's signature, and the legislature can vote against that veto and override it. So that, I know that was a lot of information, but if I could give you a couple of takeaways, it's that standing committee is very important. The list, the general file order is very important, and reaching out to your legislators in timing is also very important. And I'll show you in a little bit. Let's see if I can actually share my screen. I can show you a past bill, and we can look at where it died or where it ended up, and that might help for this year. Let's see if I can do this. And if you ever have any questions, please throw them in the chat. I can't look at them since I have like so many screens, but Alex and Becca will be sure to keep track of those as well. So this is legislation. Can you all see the screen, the WYLEG website? Great, okay. This is last year's legislation. So I'm just gonna click on one that I know that we followed. So the Medical Treatment Opportunity Act was one. And we can just go over here to status. And we can see that.
Hey, Marissa, could you zoom in a little bit? I think that, yeah.
Is that better?
On my monitor, it's a little bit easier to see. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Becca. So we can see that the House didn't even consider for introduction. So it actually didn't even make it to the first step. So maybe this isn't the best example of a bill. So let me go back and pull up a different one. Let's say tomorrow's scholarship, because that one is one that we were following this year. This bill went all the way through, but as I'll explain later, there's some amendments that need to be made and will be made hopefully this legislative session. So this looks very confusing. There's a lot of, what am I trying to say? Acronyms, there are numbers here. What do these things mean? So we can just follow it through the whole process. This is a House bill, so it was received for introduction. It was introduced and referred to the House Committee 4, which is Education. In the budget session, they have to have a 2/3 vote to introduce. So that's what these numbers are. You won't see that this year because it's a general session. The committee recommended that it does pass unanimously, which is fantastic. But then it was re-referred to appropriations. And again, it passed unanimously. Placed on general file. Committee of the whole passed, second reading passed, third reading passed, and then it went through the Senate. So these kind of words, when you see this, it kind of can look confusing, but I would suggest that you pull up this process sheet. For example, if we only see that S is placed on general file and we know it's a House bill, we know it's in the second chamber, we know it's in the Senate, and that it's awaiting committee of the whole. So I would say there are more pertinent times to reach out to your legislators, depending on, like, if it's just sitting on general file, it's a good time to talk to them before the committee of the whole. If it's in committee, it's better to reach out to your committee members rather than maybe your personal legislator. And we will have action alerts throughout the session that will be able to give you a little bit more information. But if you ever wanted to look on your own, that's where you find it, and that is where you kind of look at the process sheet as well. So let me pull the screen back up. There we go. Okay. Do we have any questions about that process? And it's also very lengthy, and things can change in the legislative session. People can vote on to whether to suspend a rule. So I think we're putting in the Citizens Guidebook, which is a little bit more simplified version of the layout of the legislative session, and then the manual on procedures. So if you have a very specific question, like why the heck did this happen, that's usually contained in the manual of procedures for the legislative session.
I'll also say, Marissa, if I could jump in here,
Absolutely.
I think daily calendar is helpful. You can see if something's been placed on general file. And I'll just go ahead and put an example of that from last year. Of course, we don't have any yet this year because it hasn't started yet. But if you click on that link that I just put in the chat, you can see where it'll bring up the floor calendars. So there's the Senate floor and the House floor. And then if you click on the details button, you can see the individual general file and the instruction list on there, which is another list that I don't know if Marissa's going to talk about that specifically, but it's another list that might be helpful to be able to refer to.
No, I think that's a great segue, Becca, because the WYWF website, actually, I'll just pop over there again, see if I can do it. Has some really good calendars. If you know where to look, if you scroll down, I'll go to the top. Let's just go to the main page. If you just go to WYWF, and you see down here, there's calendars. So you just click that. You can see, I just went to month view. You can see the session, you can see the last day for Senate files to be introduced, last day for House bills to introduce. I like it personally on the calendar view, mostly because I'm obsessed with calendars, but these are where the big dates are for the session. They also had a press release that has all that information too, but if you're more of a visual person for calendars like I am, this is really helpful for me throughout the session. So thanks, Becca, that's really helpful.
Yeah, and while you're there, if you could go back to the homepage, there was a question of where you can find how to contact your legislators.
Absolutely. So on this bottom, I use these for, it's strange that they don't have the most used tabs for me, at least on the top. They're at the bottom, but they're really easy to find. So if we go to, let's say you want to find your any legislator, we can go down to find my legislator. And I don't know actually, okay, it looks like they did update that. So that's very good. And I showed this at my last training, but I know that we don't have the same audience. So I'll just go through it again. This pulls up Wyoming's House districts. You can see that. And what I'll do is I'll type in our office, because that is the same address or the same district as mine. And you just type your address into this little bar.
Oops, you have an extra 0.
Yes, I do. I swear I know my zip code. And you click it and it takes you right to your district. Kind of. There we go. So my representative is Carly Provenza. It has her information and her email here. And you can do the same thing for Senate. So I encourage you all to do that too. If you don't know who your legislators are already.
And we do have a tool that Marissa alluded to a little bit earlier, where we will, when we send you an action alert, there will usually be a link to a tool that will automatically, when you put your address in, it will populate who you're supposed to be sending that email to. So if it's in the Senate or if it's in the House, it'll automatically find those legislators for you, which can be handy too, because here it's a little bit clunky since you have to pick your House district, your House representative, and then your Senate separately.
Absolutely. So we can see that my senator is Chris Rothfuss. So if we go back to WYO the part that I really like about this is, yes, now I know who they are, but I can go in to senators and I know he's Chris Rothfuss. I can click on him and then I have his picture. I have all of his leadership, his years of service, his education, and his occupation. You can also find his committees here and then his sponsored bills. So I didn't plan to talk about this, but I love that this is a feature on the website because you can kind of get to know your legislator before you reach out to them as well. So I encourage you all to use that feature, find out who they are, and then learn a little bit about them because that can help in connecting with them. Let's go back again. There we go. Okay, so we'll move past this for now. Can you see the PowerPoint again? Perfect. Okay. I'm not sure why I did this because this is just a title for what I'm about to go back to a website for. The Women's Foundation traditionally has tracked legislation through our legislative watch on our email. And we have very recently changed this over to tracking on our website. So I will go ahead and show that now. Sorry if anybody has motion sickness. I feel like I've been moving around quite a bit. Here we go. So here is our Legislative Watch website. It's wywf.org/legislative-watch. Again, these are our key issues that I mentioned before, and we'll have all the bills separated by these key issues. So I'm just going to kind of scroll down and then we'll go through bill by bill. So here are our education bills so far. I also wanted to say that we haven't quite finished giving a stance to all of these. So if you don't see one up here that you're like, oh, you guys should maybe speak out about this, feel free to email me. We also just might be in the process of still reviewing them. A couple of these, like the Wyoming Tomorrow Scholarship, we knew was coming through committee. So we've had a long time to establish our stance on it. Anyway, education, healthcare, representation, childcare and workplace policies, income and asset development, and then here's our watch list that will also be growing as we review more bills. So let's go back up to the top and go to Wyoming Tomorrow Scholarship Amendments. This is the one that I mentioned. The Wyoming Tomorrow Scholarship Program was passed last year as part of the budget session. However, it was not adequately funded. This scholarship kind of goes to non-traditional students, students that wouldn't qualify for the Hathaway Scholarship since they didn't attend college right after high school, but it wasn't adequately funded. So this bill would provide the adequate funding to begin dispersing those scholarships. Actually, I'll go back so I can talk through this. So this is what we have. We have the bill title. We say whether we support it right here, and then why it matters to women and girls. And then if we click on this bill, it'll pull up more information on our website. So this is a summary. This is taken straight from the bill text, kind of provides a little bit more information on exactly what the bill says. Why it matters is again right here. The sponsors, this is sponsored by the Joint Education Committee over the interim session. We also have the latest action. The legislative session has not started yet, so right now we only have bill number assigned. This is a status bar that lets you know where the bill is, whether it's still assigned, which is where it is now, whether it is in the House, the Senate, or it's sent to the governor. So these little bars will light up, as well as you'll have kind of the same last action as WYO-Leg. So it's that HSO2 referred to, kind of those confusing words that now that you have that process sheet, hopefully you can kind of decipher. So that's that one.
Can I just add really quick that
Absolutely.
under education it says primary. So sometimes bills will be primarily sponsored by an individual and then a couple other legislators might sign on to it as secondary sponsors. So it doesn't mean as much when it's a bill that comes out of a committee like the education committee, but some bills will come out from individual legislators or a few legislators.
Absolutely. It's a great point. Okay, so we'll go to our healthcare bills. If you've followed us on social media or our Power Advocate, you've probably seen a lot about this one. This is House Bill 4, the Medicaid 12-month postpartum coverage. Essentially, Medicaid only covers specific populations in Wyoming right now, and one of those populations are the pregnant women, are pregnant women. And so this Medicaid right now covers up to 60 days postpartum. And this bill would extend it from 60 days to 12 months because we know that medical issues aren't even resolved, sometimes don't even arise in those 60 days, as well as just falling off of insurance and not having any other insurance is detrimental to financial security for women. But we recently debuted a video that kind of supports this bill. And so I will go ahead and show that. Can you all see the video?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. And I'll play it and then hopefully you'll be able to hear it too.
We're the Wyoming Women's Foundation, dedicated to investing in the economic self-sufficiency of women and girls. We help Wyoming citizens advocate for policies that make economic self-sufficiency accessible to women, focusing on 4 key areas: healthcare, representation, education, and childcare and workplace policies. Wyoming consistently has one of the highest uninsurance rates in the country. This is particularly bad news for pregnant women in our state. Working women of childbearing age are one of the largest groups who do not have access to insurance. In fact, within 3 months of giving birth to a baby, almost 1 out of 5 women become uninsured in Wyoming. Under current Wyoming policy, postpartum health problems are not likely to be resolved before mom's health insurance expires. This doesn't just affect women, it affects babies too. We all know a baby's health begins and depends on her mother's health. When Wyoming invests in mothers and babies, communities thrive. Learn more by visiting us online at WYWF.org.
So we want to give a shout out to Kyle Spradley for helping us with that. That was a great project. And hopefully we can use it and share it during the session as well. Let me click on that one as well. It's the same layout. They all automatically scrape or update from the WYLEG website, so it shouldn't be too far behind. And I think it's a little bit of a simpler view, definitely more colors, which I enjoy, than the WYLEG, the Wyoming Legislature's website. Oh, and there's something I didn't say. If you want to view the full bill, you can always click the bill source here, and it'll pull up that page on the Wyoming Legislature's website. We've talked about this in past trainings, but just so you know the status, you can find it here. If there are any amendments made throughout the process, you can see them broken out by House or Senate. The fiscal note, which I believe is 3.8 million for this bill specifically, but if you're interested in how much does this cost and where is that money coming from, you can always look at the fiscal note. Once they start voting on the bill, you can find that there. This is just a really good layout for all of that information. There's different bill versions and resources, and as amendments are added, those will change as well. So we'll go back, move on to the next one, which is House Bill 80, the Medical Treatment Opportunity Act, Medicaid reform, or also known as Medicaid expansion. Medicaid expansion, like I said before, only a couple of very particular groups are covered by Medicaid in Wyoming. And what Medicaid expansion would do is open up Medicaid for anybody who is under 138% of the federal poverty level and who are under 65. And Wyoming working women make up or under 35, so reproductive age. Those women make up the largest group in that coverage gap. So we are hoping and supporting this bill and hoping that we see Medicaid expansion in the near future. There are also other groups like Healthy Wyoming. There are other organizations who are working on this cause as well. And so we can drop those links in the chat at the end if you want to get involved in that more readily. So moving on to representation, the gender of our elected officials represent that of our population. The first is House Bill 49, Municipal Nonpartisan Ranked Choice Elections. Ranked choice is a little bit difficult to explain if you don't have a visual, so I actually have a video for that too. But essentially, national groups support ranked choice voting as a solution to the low representation of women in politics, and that's due to civil campaigns, since women are often targeted more than men in candidacies, so they actually receive more online abuse than men. It eliminates vote splitting between women and has saved money in terms of attack ads. So let me see if I can pull up that. I don't know why. There we go.
So what is ranked choice voting? In most parts of the United States, voters select a single candidate for each position on their ballot, and the candidate with the most votes wins. This is known as single-choice winner-take-all, which can sometimes result in the election of a candidate who earned only a small percentage of the vote, even when the majority of voters supported other candidates. But that's not the only way of electing our leaders. Ranked choice voting is another voting method which allows voters to rank their candidates in order of preference. In a ranked choice voting election, a candidate needs to earn more than half of the votes to win. All first choices are counted, and if a candidate has a majority, then they win, just like any other election. If not, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and voters who picked that candidate as number one will have their votes count for their next choice. This process continues until a candidate earns a majority and is declared the winner. Let's look at an example. Here, you select orange as your first choice candidate, yellow as your second, pink as your third, and green as your final choice. The first choices are counted. Yellow earned 35%, orange 21%, pink earned 28%, and green earned 16% of the vote. Because nobody won more than 50%, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and voters who picked him as their first choice have their ballots count for their second choice. This continues until a candidate receives more than half of the votes, or 50% plus 1. So what are some of the benefits of ranked choice voting? Ranked choice voting provides more choices, allowing more than two candidates to compete without fear of splitting the vote among like-minded individuals. Sometimes voters feel pressured to vote for the lesser of two evils. Ranked choice voting allows people to vote for their favorite candidate, not just against the candidates they dislike. With ranked choice voting, we see more positive campaigns and less negative advertising. Candidates are encouraged to reach out to as many voters as possible, including those supporting their opponents. They can build a winning coalition with like-minded candidates to earn voters' second and third choices. It's time to fix our democracy and make our elections work better for everybody. We can do that with ranked choice voting. Visit www.fairvote.org to find out how you can get involved.
Okay, so that is a little description on ranked choice voting. The thing to note about this bill in particular is that it's a municipal opt-in, which means that municipalities can opt in to using ranked choice voting if this bill passes. There will be some machinery updates that will be necessary and a lot of public education about this, but we believe that it's a good solution for the lack of women's representation that we see in Wyoming. So these next three kind of go together, and they're all based on our Wyoming Women in Elected Roles brief that states that women are often discouraged from running because of the low pay, long hours, there's no health care associated with it, and we know that women are less likely to be offered employer health insurance as well as other benefits as well. So these bills increase the per diem and the constituent service allowance. That just means they get a little bit more money. It's not substantial. They're not making a ton of money. But since women are less likely to be in politically adjacent careers, which means that those are careers that allow them to take off, 3 months for the legislative session and a ton of time in the summer to travel as well, that increase can offset that difference. And then legislator healthcare is just a prepaid plan that will allow legislators to opt in as well, which doesn't exist currently. They don't have healthcare provided by the state, which is very important for not only for financial security, but for the health and well-being of legislators as well. We currently don't have anything under our childcare and workplace policies. Again, that might change. We're going to see a lot of more bills filed in the next few weeks. The last day for any bills to be filed, I think, is January 31st. So we're likely to see a large influx probably in the next 2 weeks. So yeah, it'll be a little crazy, but we'll be adding more. So make sure that you keep coming back to this website and checking up on us. So for income and asset development, we have a mirror bill, which means they're running a similar bill or the same bill in both of the chambers. So we have Senate File 70, Sales Tax Holiday Back to School, and House Bill 71, Sales Tax Holiday Back to School. This is a tax holiday, and I think it's the last weekend. Actually, I can probably just click on it and see more information so I don't give you bad information. Oh, it doesn't say right there, but I think it's the last weekend in August. They allow a sales tax break on school supplies. So that helps not only parents, it helps teachers who are overwhelmingly women in getting that school supplies for their classroom or for their children. And then last, we have House Bill 12, presumptive child support amounts. These are updated tables. The Department of Family Services gave a presentation on that these tables have not been updated in 14 years. So we're going to see an increase due to mostly inflation so that women and single parents can get the child support that they need to reach and attain economic self-sufficiency. More information if you just want to go and click on that bill. It'll give you the actual numbers if you go to the WYWF website, which I encourage. It's, again, nothing too crazy. They're not giving them millions of dollars. It's just an increase. And I don't even think it's completely caught up with what they recommend it right now. It's just an increase that that needs to be made. Okay. And now we made it to our watch list, which are just links at the bottom. We don't necessarily have a stance supporting or opposing these. We know that they affect women and that maybe we're trying to gather more information or talk to experts, or maybe we just know that there's some other background things that we aren't experts on, so we don't have an opinion yet. We might have one, or we might just continue to monitor it for you. Okay, so that is our legislative watch, and again, that will be updated. Some of these don't have why it matters yet, so we have to write those, and I'm sure you'll be seeing more bills in the next few days. This button will take you to another website. Let's see if it goes. Not another website, another page on our website. And it'll give you a little bit of information on how to advocate for women and girls. This is a Find Your Legislator button. It looks like the words just decided to disappear. This is the YouTube link where you can watch all of the committee and floor proceedings during the legislative session. And this is the Citizens Guidebook. You can become a power advocate to get any updates about the legislation that we're tracking, or how to use your voice, and where you can do that. We provide forms, as Becca said, that go straight to your legislator or to a committee member or to a full committee if we program it that way. And then a little bit of information how to reach out to your legislators, and then that how a bill becomes a law is also here. So let me go back. Oh, and then I wanted to show, kind of already showed this before, but just because we are not tracking something doesn't mean that there aren't bills that are important to you. So the full list of legislation that's being filed is on wyoleg.gov/legislation/2023. Just make sure that you have the 2023 bills up, and then you're welcome to scroll through, look at any that you want, because I want to see what bills that you guys are interested in. So if you don't mind popping in the chat anything that you heard or saw or know of, just based on what you've been looking at, what bills are you interested in, and what will you follow through this session? And so Becca, if you don't mind reading, if anybody has put anything in the chat. I think the one that I'm most excited about is definitely the postpartum extension. It's one that we introduced in the interim session and followed and talked to legislators, and that's one I'm really hoping that we see passed.
Yeah, Lindsay Linton is chiming in on that as well. She'd love to see that get passed. Try to drop the link to our page in there again, just in case anyone wants to look at it. I know it's a lot of information to try to pick one right away. We also are seeing HB 72 will be interesting to watch. The tax conversations are always eventful. And postpartum extension and Medicaid expansion we're interested in. Ranked choice voting is coming up a couple times. And Wyoming's promise tomorrow, Wyoming's Tomorrow Scholarship. Oh yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you. It's really interesting to see what other people pick out. And I apologize if you heard me cough. I definitely just choked on my water, but I'm good now.
No worries. There's also the daycare certification amendment.
Yes, yep, that's one of our watch bills that I don't think I've put on our website yet. A lot of interesting ones. I'm sure we're going to see more interesting ones. I think it's rumored that, we have almost 200 bills pre-filed already. And I think we're going to see most likely twice that at the end of the session, which is just wild. So
We'll keep up with, so we'll try to help with that.
Yeah, definitely try to help with that. We'll send any information on things that we're tracking. And again, if you find a bill that you are interested in, that you don't think that we're following or maybe paying close enough attention to, or don't have certain information on, please feel free to email me at marissa@wycf.org. So we're going to transition into a moment of mindfulness. If you received our packets, you got these little cards from Flitner Strategies that are really great. So I just encourage you all, you're welcome to turn off your video. I'll mute myself for a little bit and just take yourself through one of these. There's a mindful micro practice for frustration, criticism, conflict, self-compassion, whatever you're feeling. It doesn't even have to be legislative related. I just encourage you to, we'll take a couple minutes and walk ourselves through that. Okay, so if you had time to read one of those and really think through them, fantastic. If you just read them quickly and want to maybe have a copy of this so you can do them yourself. Big thank you to Flitner Strategies for providing these. I think they're fantastic. They definitely work for legislation. If you're frustrated at maybe how the way a bill is going, just thinking, oh, this person is human, I can talk to them. Let me just take a couple of seconds. So when things have been moving too fast, I definitely encourage you to take a moment, self-reflect, and see how we can move forward. Okay. So I just want to mention a couple of things that are coming up. Tomorrow is the first day of the legislative session, which I didn't have in here, but that is true. They will start swearing in, I think, at noon. But then at 1 p.m. is Healthy Wyoming's Medicaid expansion rally that'll take place at the Capitol building and the steps. I'll be there, and we'll put in the link to where to RSVP for that. January 23rd and 24th is Equality State Policy Center's Shape Wyoming training. If you're interested in getting more into the processes and how to reach out to legislators and how to become a grassroots lobbyist, this is a great place to start. I've watched all of Shape Wyoming's trainings on YouTube and they're fantastic, so I would recommend. And then the Leap into Leadership, which is the Women's Legislative Caucus, I believe is, and correct me if I'm wrong, February 24th and 25th. So it's next month, but more information on that as well. But thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate you listening to me. I know that was a lot of information, probably felt like a little bit of an overload, but if you ever have any questions, please reach out to us. My email is marissa@wycf.org, or you can call our office at 307-721-8300. Thank you all so much. And I'll stay on if there's any questions. Otherwise, feel free to head out.